The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. 12 different species sat in their floating chairs, all eyes focused on the small blue figure standing in the center. Zephyr's forearms shook as he gripped the speaking platform. His normally bright blue skin looked pale and sick. Deep scars ran across his face and neck, marks that would never heal. "I am the only one left," Zephyr said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The only one who survived to tell this story." The council members leaned forward. They had heard rumors about what happened to the Kethmori expedition. 3 months ago, a full diplomatic team had gone to make first contact with a new species. Only Zephyr had returned, and he had been too damaged to speak until now. "Tell us what happened," said Council Leader Morvith, her tentacles moving slowly in the ancient gesture of patience. "Tell us about the humans." Zephyr closed his large black eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with something the Council had never seen before in a Kethmori. Fear, pure, endless fear. "It started as a routine mission," he began. "We detected them 3 years ago. A young species on the 3rd planet of a yellow star. They had just learned to leave their world with small metal ships. Very primitive, very simple. Perfect for peaceful contact." He paused, looking around the hall at the familiar faces, the Valkyrie with their 6 eyes, the Threndi with their crystal bodice, the Morpak with their flowing tentacles, all of them advanced species, all of them peaceful, all of them completely unprepared for what was coming. "We were excited," Zephyr continued. "The humans seemed perfect for joining our community. They were curious about space. They sent radio signals that showed they wanted to learn about other worlds. Their technology was hundreds of years behind ours, but they were trying. We thought they would be grateful to meet us." The Kethmori had been chosen for the mission because they were the best diplomats in the galaxy. For 1,000 years, they had been making first contact with new species. They knew how to approach primitive worlds without causing fear. They knew how to share technology slowly and safely. They had never failed to bring a new species into the galactic community. "Our ship was the Harmony's edge," Zephyr said. "Commander Velthara was the best leader we had. Science Officer Nixpol knew everything about primitive cultures. Communications. Specialist Quendi could learn any language in days. And I was there to help them understand the humans better. The ship had been perfect for the mission. It was large enough to show their advanced technology, but not so large as to seem threatening. It had powerful shields and weapons, but they were hidden. The humans would see only peaceful visitors from the stars. We spent months preparing," Zephyr said. "We studied their radio signals and learned their languages. We watched their entertainment shows to understand their culture. We saw that they had wars in their past, but so did many species. We thought they had grown beyond that." The Kethmori had been confident. They had seen the human space stations and moon bases. Simple metal constructions that looked like children's toys compared to galactic technology. The humans had nuclear weapons, but they were crude and dangerous. They had computers, but they were slow and limited. Everything about them screamed primitive. "We decided to approach slowly," Zephyr continued. "First, we would watch from their outer solar system. Then we would send simple messages. Then we would reveal ourselves and invite them to meet us." The plan had worked perfectly at first. The humans had detected their ship almost immediately, which was expected. Their technology was primitive, but they were not stupid. Within hours, the humans had sent radio messages in several languages, all asking the same basic questions. "Who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you here?" Their messages were polite, Zephyr said. They seemed nervous, but excited. They wanted to learn about us. They asked about our world and our people. They invited us to come closer and talk. The Kethmori had been pleased. This was exactly how first contact should go. The humans were curious but careful. They were not trying to attack or run away. They were ready to join the galactic community. Commander Velthara was very happy, Zephyr remembered. She said the humans would be easy to work with. She said, "They reminded her of the Valkyrie when we first met them. young and eager to learn. The first meeting had been arranged carefully. The humans would send a small ship to meet the Harmony's edge. Only a few people from each side would participate. Everyone would be unarmed and peaceful. It would be a historic moment, the first time humans and aliens spoke face to face. The human ship was exactly what we expected, Zephyr said. Small, crude, but functional. It had simple chemical rockets and basic metal hull. Their life support systems were primitive but adequate. Everything about it said they were centuries behind us. The human delegation had been small. A captain named Jake Morrison, a scientist named Dr. Lisa Carter, and a military officer named Commander Ryan Brooks. They had seemed nervous but excited as they entered the Harmony's edge. They had asked permission for everything, thanked the Kethmori for their hospitality, and expressed amazement at the advanced technology around them. Dr. Carter was especially interested in our science, Zephyr said. She asked many questions about our biology and our technology. She wanted to know how we had developed faster than light travel. She wanted to know about our energy systems and our computers. The questions had seemed natural. Any primitive species would be curious about advanced technology. The Kethmori had been happy to share basic information. They had shown the humans around their ship, explained how their systems worked, and demonstrated some of their less advanced equipment. Commander Brooks was quiet, Zephyr said, and for the first time his voice carried a hint of the terror. That would come later. He didn't ask many questions. He just watched. He watched everything. But at the time, this had not seemed important. Military officers were often quiet during diplomatic meetings. The Kethmori had assumed he was just being careful, making sure the humans were safe. They had not realized that Commander Brooks was studying them, learning their weaknesses, preparing for war. The meeting lasted 6 hours, Zephyr said. We shared food and stories. We talked about our worlds and our peoples. The humans seemed fascinated by our peaceful society. They asked how we had ended war and violence on our world. The Kethmori had been proud to explain their history. They had evolved from herd animals that lived in harmony. They had never developed the aggressive instincts that plagued many species. War was not just foreign to them, it was impossible to understand. Commander Velthara made a mistake, Zephyr said quietly. She commented on humanity's violent history. She said it was unfortunate that they had not yet learned to live in peace. She said that joining the galactic community would help them grow beyond their primitive, aggressive nature. A change in the humans had been subtle, a slight stiffening of their postures, a new look in their eyes. But the Kethmori had not noticed. They had been too busy planning the next phase of contact. They had been thinking about cultural exchange, programs and technology sharing agreements. We were so naive, Zephyr whispered. We thought we understood them. We thought they were just another young species ready to join the galaxy. We had no idea what we had just awakened. The hall remained, silent as Zephyr paused, gathering strength for what would come next. The council members could see the fear growing in his eyes, the memory of horrors they could not yet imagine. They waited, knowing that this was only the beginning of a story that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. That was our first mistake, Zephyr said finally. We thought humans were primitive. We were wrong. We were so very, very wrong. Zephyr's hands shook as he continued his story. The council members leaned forward, their different faces all showing the same expression of growing concern. They had never heard a first contact story like this before. The second meeting was planned for 3 days later, Zephyr said. We wanted to give the humans time to think about what they had seen. We thought they would be excited to learn more about the galaxy. The Kethmori had been pleased with how the first meeting had gone. The humans had been polite and curious. They had asked good questions and seemed ready to learn. Commander Velthara had already begun planning the next steps of integration. We prepared gifts for them, Zephyr continued. Simple technology that would help their species advance. Better computers, cleaner energy systems, medical equipment. We wanted to show them the benefits of joining the galactic community. The human ship that arrived for the second meeting looked different. It was still the same crude metal construction, But something about it seemed more purposeful. The engines burned brighter, the hull looked thicker. The humans had made improvements in just 3 days. Captain Morrison came aboard again, Zephyr said. But this time he brought different people. Dr. Carter was there, but she seemed changed. More focused, more intense. Commander Brooks was there too, but he was not quiet anymore. The humans had prepared their own gifts, simple items from their world, art, music, books, and food. But they had also brought something else, data, lots of data about their species and their world. They said they wanted to share everything, Zephyr remembered. They gave us their history, their science, their culture. They said they wanted us to understand them completely. The data had been overwhelming. The humans had included everything from their earliest cave paintings to their most advanced space technology. They had shared their literature, their music, their movies, and their games. They had given the Kethmori access to their entire internet. Science. Officer Nixpol was very excited, Zephyr said. She said the humans were the most open species we had ever met. She said they were eager to share and learn. She started studying their data immediately. But as Nixpol had begun reading through the human information, she had found things that disturbed her. The humans had not just included their peaceful achievements. They had also included their wars, their weapons, their strategies for conflict and survival. Dr. Carter asked strange questions, Zephyr continued. She wanted to know about our weaknesses. She said it was for medical purposes, to help treat us if we were injured. She asked about our biology, our nervous system, our immune system. The questions had seemed reasonable at first. Any doctor would want to understand alien biology. But Dr. Carter had been very specific. She had asked about pain responses, about what substances might be harmful to Kethmori, about how their bodies would react to different environments. Commander Brooks was very interested in our ship, Zephyr said. He asked about our shields, our weapons, our engines. He said humans were curious about technology. He said they wanted to learn how we had achieved such advanced systems. The military officer had walked through the ship with the eyes of a predator. He had asked about defensive systems, about weak points, about how the ship's systems could be disabled. He had memorized every detail, every corridor, every control panel. We answered all their questions, Zephyr said, and his voice carried the weight of terrible regret. We thought we were being helpful. We thought we were building trust. We had no idea they were gathering intelligence. And the humans had been recording everything. Not just the conversations, but detailed scans of the ship's systems. Their primitive equipment had been upgraded with technology they had somehow reverse-engineered from their first visit. In just 3 days, they had learned to copy Kethmori. Sensors. Captain Morrison told us about human history, Zephyr continued. He said they had fought many wars, but they had learned from them. He said conflict had taught them to be strong and adaptable. He said it had prepared them for the challenges of space. The way Morrison had talked about war had been disturbing. He had not spoken of it as a tragedy or a mistake. He had talked about it as a teacher, as something that had made humans better. He had described battles and strategies with the same enthusiasm that other species reserved for art or music. They showed us their military history, Zephyr said. Films and images of their wars. They said they wanted us to understand how they had developed their technology. They said conflict had driven their innovation. The images had been horrifying. To the peaceful Kethmori, humans fighting humans with terrible weapons, cities destroyed, millions dead. Technologies created for the sole purpose of killing. The humans had shown these things with pride, as if they were achievements to be celebrated. Commander Velthara was disturbed, Zephyr remembered. She said the humans were too violent to join the galactic community. She said they needed more time to evolve beyond their aggressive nature. She said we should wait a few hundred years before making contact again, but it was already too late. The humans had not come to the second meeting to learn. They had come to gather the final pieces of information they needed. They had studied the Kethmori, learned their weaknesses, and prepared for what would come next. Dr. Carter smiled when Commander Valthara spoke about human violence, Zephyr said, and his voice dropped to a whisper. She said that humans had indeed learned much from their conflicts. She said they had become very good at solving problems that others thought were impossible. The human delegation had left that day with everything they needed. They had complete scans of the Harmony's Edge. They had detailed information about Kethmori biology and psychology. They had recordings of every conversation, every casual comment, every weakness that had been revealed. We thought we were ending the meeting on a positive note, Zephyr said. Captain Morrison thanked us for our hospitality. He said the humans would consider carefully what they had learned. He said they would be in touch soon. But as the human ship had moved away from the Harmony's Edge, it had not returned to Earth. Instead, it had taken position at a distance, just far enough away to avoid detection by Kethmori sensors. The humans had not left. They had been waiting. 6 hours after the meeting ended, our sensors detected something impossible, Zephyr said. Ships were approaching from all directions. Dozens of them. They were using technology we had never seen before. The ships had not been the crude metal constructions the humans had shown them. These were sleek, advanced vessels that moved with purpose and precision. They had appeared from nowhere, using some kind of stealth technology that made them invisible to Kethmori detection systems. Science Officer Nixpol ran scans on the approaching ships, Zephyr continued. She said they were using modified versions of our own technology. She said the humans had somehow improved our designs in just 3 days. The impossible had happened. The primitive humans had not just copied advanced galactic technology, they had made it better. They had taken systems that had been developed over centuries and enhanced them in a matter of hours. Commander Valthara ordered us to prepare for departure, Zephyr said. She said we needed to return to Council space immediately. She said the humans were more dangerous than we had realized. But as the Harmony's Edge had begun to power up its engines, the human ships had moved closer. They had surrounded the Kethmori vessel, cutting off all escape routes. The humans had been ready for this moment. They had planned it from the beginning. Captain Morrison's voice came over our communications, Zephyr said. He said the humans had enjoyed our meetings. He said they had learned much about the galaxy. He said they were ready to discuss the terms of Earth's integration into the galactic community. The tone of his voice had been different. No longer the nervous excitement of first contact. Now it was calm, confident, and utterly terrifying. The humans had revealed their true nature. They had been playing a game that the Kethmori had not even realized they were part of. He said we were welcome to stay and continue our cultural exchange, Zephyr concluded. He said the humans had many more things to show us. He said we would learn much about what it meant to be human. The council chamber remained silent as Zephyr paused. The representatives could see the fear in his eyes growing stronger. They could sense that this was only the beginning of a horror that would challenge everything they thought they knew about first contact and peaceful species. We realized then that we had made a terrible mistake, Zephyr whispered. We thought we were the teachers. We thought we were bringing knowledge to a primitive species. But the humans had been studying us from the moment we arrived. They had been learning everything they needed to know to defeat us. The silence stretched on as the council absorbed the implications of what they had heard. A species that could reverse engineer and improve galactic technology in days. A species that treated war as education. A species that had turned first contact into a trap. That was when we learned the truth about humans, Zephyr said finally. They were not primitive. They were not peaceful. They were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. And we had just taught them everything they needed to know to conquer us all. The council chamber was completely silent as Zephyr gathered his strength to continue. His forearms trembled, and the scars on his face seemed to glow under the chamber's lights. Every representative in the room could feel the dread building. In the air, we tried to run, Zephyr said, his voice barely audible. Commander Valthara ordered maximum power to the engines. We had the fastest ship in the galaxy. We thought we could escape. The Harmony's Edge had been built for speed and diplomacy. Its engines could reach speeds that would leave most ships far behind. The Kethmori had been confident that, even if the humans had somehow improved their technology, they could not match a ship designed by the galaxy's best engineers. Our engines fired, Zephyr continued. We began to accelerate. For a moment, we thought we were free. But then something impossible happened. The human ships moved with us. They matched our speed exactly. The human vessels had not just copied Kethmori technology. They had somehow made it better. Ships that should have been crude metal constructions were now moving like advanced galactic vessels. They stayed in perfect formation around the Harmony's edge, never falling behind, never losing position. Science Officer Nixpol ran every scan. She could, Zephyr said. She said the human ships were using our own engines, but they had been modified. She said they were producing more power than should have been possible. The humans had done something that galactic engineers had thought impossible. They had taken a design that had been perfected over centuries and improved it in days. They had found flaws that the galaxy's best scientists had missed. They had made Kethmori technology better than the Kethmori themselves. Captain Morrison's voice came over our communications again. Zephyr remembered. He said there was no need to run. He said the humans only wanted to continue their cultural exchange. He said we had much more to learn about each other. The tone of Morrison's voice had been calm and friendly, but there was something underneath it that made the Kethmori's blood run cold. It was the voice of a predator that had cornered its prey. It was the voice of someone who held all the power and knew it. Commander Velthara tried to contact the Galactic Council, Zephyr continued. She wanted to send a warning about the humans, but our communications were being blocked. The humans had somehow learned to jam our signals. The jamming had been perfect. The humans had not just blocked the Kethmori communications. They had replaced them with their own signals. Anyone trying to contact the Harmony's Edge would receive automated responses saying that the mission was going well and that first contact was proceeding normally. We were trapped, Zephyr said. Surrounded by ships that should not exist, using technology that should not work. We had no choice but to listen to what the humans wanted to tell us. The human fleet had guided the Harmony's Edge to a location, in empty space. There, waiting for them, was something that made the Kethmori's worst fears seem small. A massive space station that had not been there before. A construction that was clearly human but used technology that was clearly galactic. They had built a station, Zephyr said, his voice shaking with remembered terror. In 3 days, they had built a station larger than anything we had ever seen. It was using our technology, but it was designed like nothing we had ever imagined. The station was not just large, it was armed. Weapons that used Kethmori energy principles but were built with human military thinking. The peaceful tools of galactic civilization had been turned into instruments of war by minds that understood violence in ways the galaxy had never seen. We were brought inside, Zephyr continued. The docking bay was huge. There were dozens of human ships inside, all of them using modified galactic technology. There were also ships from other species, ships we recognized. The sight of familiar vessels had filled the Kethmori with a new kind of horror. These were not human ships. These were galactic ships. Ships that belonged to other species, other civilizations. Ships that should have been light years away from human space. Commander Brooks was waiting for us, Zephyr said. But he was not the same quiet officer we had met before. He was wearing a military uniform we had never seen. He was in command of soldiers who moved like they had been fighting wars for years. The human military had been transformed. The crude weapons and simple tactics the Kethmori had observed were gone. In their place was a fighting force that used advanced technology with the skill of experienced warriors. They moved with precision and purpose that spoke of intense training and preparation. He welcomed us to Earth Station 1, Zephyr remembered. He said the humans had been busy since our first meeting. He said they had learned much about the galaxy and were ready to take their place in it. Earth Station 1 was not just a space station, it was a fortress, a base of operations that the humans had built in secret while pretending to be a primitive species. Every system, every weapon, every defensive measure had been designed with one purpose: to give humanity the power to challenge the galaxy. Dr. Carter was there too, Zephyr continued. But she was not the friendly scientist we had met. She was wearing a lab coat covered in symbols we did not recognize. She looked at us like we were specimens to be studied. The human doctor had been transformed as well. Her curiosity about alien biology had become something darker. She had been studying the information the Kethmori had provided, learning about alien weaknesses, developing ways to exploit them. She said she had been working on some fascinating projects, Zephyr said. She said human medicine had advanced remarkably since meeting us. She said they had developed treatments for all kinds of alien conditions. The treatments Dr. Carter had developed were not meant to heal, they were weapons. Biological agents designed to target specific alien species. Diseases that would affect Kethmori but not humans. Poisons that would work on galactic physiology but leave human biology untouched. Colonel Amy Peterson was introduced to us, Zephyr said. She was the station commander. She said she had been studying galactic military history. She said humans had learned much from our peaceful ways. Colonel Peterson had been studying more than military history. She had been analyzing every conflict the galaxy had ever seen, learning from the mistakes of species that had fought and lost. She had been preparing for wars that had not yet begun. She showed us recordings, Zephyr continued. Images from other first contact missions. Other species meeting humans for the first time. Other diplomatic teams that had thought they were dealing with primitives. The recordings had been horrifying. The humans had been making contact with multiple species simultaneously. Each time they had played the same role, curious primitives eager to learn. Each time they had gathered intelligence and technology. Each time they had been preparing for something bigger. We were not the first, Zephyr said. We were not even the 10th. The humans had been contacting species across the galaxy for months. They had been learning, adapting, preparing. Every meeting made them stronger. The scale of the human deception had been staggering. While the galaxy had been going about its peaceful business, humanity had been studying every major species, learning their weaknesses, stealing their technology, and preparing for conquest. Colonel Peterson explained the situation to us, Zephyr said. She said the galaxy had made assumptions about human nature. She said those assumptions had been mistakes. She said humans had been studying war for thousands of years. The human military philosophy was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species had developed technology for exploration and cooperation, humans had developed it for conflict and domination. Every tool, every system, every innovation had been designed with warfare in mind. She said humans had been preparing for this moment since they first looked at the stars, Zephyr continued. She said every human war, every conflict, every battle had been training for galactic conquest. She said humans had been getting ready to meet us long before we knew they existed. The revelation had been devastating. The galaxy had assumed that primitive meant harmless. They had thought that a species without advanced technology could not be a threat. They had not realized that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology but their thinking. Dr. Carter began her examinations, Zephyr said, and his voice became filled with remembered pain. She said she needed to understand Kethmori biology better. She said her research would help improve human-alien relations. The examinations had been torture disguised as science. Dr. Carter had tested every aspect of Kethmori physiology, learning how to cause pain, how to cause fear, how to break their will. She had studied their psychology, their social structures, their deepest fears. She said humans had developed many useful techniques, Zephyr said. She said they had learned much about motivation and cooperation. She said they had become very good at helping other species understand their place in the galaxy. The techniques Dr. Carter had developed were not medical procedures. They were interrogation methods, ways to break down alien psychology and rebuild it according to human needs, ways to turn peaceful species into tools of human ambition. Zephyr breathing became shallow as he prepared to tell the council about the next part of his nightmare. The scars on his arms seemed to pulse with remembered pain. Every representative in the chamber could sense that the worst was yet to come. They separated us, Zephyr said quietly. Each member of our crew was taken to a different section of the station. They said it was for our safety. They said they wanted to make sure we were comfortable. The separation had been systematic and deliberate. The humans had studied the crew dynamics during their meetings and knew exactly how to break down the Kathmori chain of command. They had isolated each crew member to prevent coordination and resistance. I was taken to what they called a research facility, Zephyr continued. Dr. Carter said she wanted to continue her studies of Kathmori biology. She said she was fascinated by how different species had evolved. The research facility had been a nightmare disguised as a laboratory. Clean, white walls, advanced medical equipment, and humans in lab coats who spoke politely while doing terrible things. The humans had taken everything they had learned about galactic medical technology and turned it into instruments of study and control. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hughes was in charge of the technical section, Zephyr said. He showed me something that should have been impossible. They had completely rebuilt our energy shields, not just copied them, made them better. Hughes had been a human engineer before the first contact. In the days since meeting the Kathmori, he had become something else entirely. He understood galactic technology better than the species that had created it. He could see flaws that had been invisible to galactic engineers for centuries. He said humans had a different approach to technology, Zephyr remembered. He said, galactic species made tools for specific purposes, but humans made tools that could be changed, adapted, improved. He said this was how humans had survived on their world. The human approach to technology was revolutionary. Where galactic species had spent centuries perfecting single-purpose devices, humans created systems that could be modified for any situation. They had taken the galaxy's specialized tools and turned them into flexible weapons of conquest. Dr. Rachel Stone was working with our faster-than-light engines, Zephyr continued. She said she had found problems with our design. She said, humans had ideas for making space travel much faster and more efficient. Dr. Stone had not just understood galactic FTL technology. She had identified fundamental flaws in systems that had been considered perfect. In days, she had developed improvements that would take galactic engineers decades to achieve. The humans had not just copied alien science, they had surpassed it. She showed me calculations, Zephyr said. Numbers that proved human improvements could make our ships 10 times faster. She said humans had learned much about physics from studying our technology. The calculations had been terrifying in their implications. If humans could improve galactic FTL drives by that magnitude, they could move across the galaxy faster than any other species. They could strike anywhere, anytime, before anyone could respond or prepare. But the most frightening thing was watching their soldiers, Zephyr said, and his voice dropped to a whisper. Sergeant Kate Williams and Private First Class Tony. Martina showed me what humans called combat training. The human soldiers had been transformed. The primitive military forces the Kathmori had observed from Earth were gone. In their place were warriors who moved with deadly precision, using advanced galactic technology with skills that seemed impossible to achieve in such a short time. They moved like predators, Zephyr said. Every step was calculated. Every action had purpose. They had taken our peaceful technology and turned it into weapons of war. The humans had weaponized everything. Galactic medical scanners had become targeting systems. Peaceful communication devices had become tools for psychological warfare. Even basic maintenance equipment had been modified for combat applications. Sergeant Williams explained human military philosophy to me, Zephyr continued. She said humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. She said every conflict had taught them new ways to win. The human understanding of warfare was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They did not just fight battles. They studied them, analyzed them, learned from them. Every defeat became a lesson. Every victory became a foundation for future success. She said humans had developed something called asymmetric warfare, Zefter said. She said it meant using your enemy's strengths against them. She said humans had become very good at turning advantages into weaknesses. The concept had been impossible for the peaceful Kethmori to understand. How could strength become weakness? How could advantages be turned against their owners? But the humans had been demonstrating exactly that principle since first contact. Private Martinez showed me human weapons, Zefter continued. Not just guns and explosives, but weapons made from our own technology. Devices that use galactic science to cause harm in ways we had never imagined. The human weapons were not crude instruments of destruction. They were sophisticated tools that used galactic principles to achieve maximum effect with minimum effort. They had taken the galaxy's peaceful technologies and reverse-engineered them into instruments of war. He said humans had learned to make weapons from anything, Zefter said. Medical equipment, communication devices, even food preparation. Tools. He said humans could turn any technology into something dangerous. The human ability to weaponize peaceful technology was beyond galactic comprehension. They saw potential for violence in everything. They could take the most benign device and transform it into an instrument of war. They had turned the galaxy's own gifts against itself. Commander Brooks visited me regularly, Zefter said. He said he was studying galactic military history. He said humans were fascinated by how peaceful species had developed. Brooks had been analyzing every conflict in galactic history, studying the tactics that had succeeded and failed. He had been learning from the mistakes of species that had tried and failed to resist conquest. He had been preparing for wars that had not yet begun. He said humans had a saying, Zefter continued. They called it thinking outside the box. He said it meant finding solutions that others could not see. He said humans were very good at solving impossible problems. The human ability to think beyond conventional limitations was their greatest weapon. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw problems, humans saw puzzles to be solved. They had applied this thinking to galactic conquest with terrifying results. He showed me battle plans, Zefter said. Strategies for conquering every major galactic world. Plans that used each species' own technology and psychology against them. Plans that had been developed in just days. The human military planning was comprehensive and horrifying. They had identified the weaknesses of every galactic species and developed specific strategies to exploit them. They had turned first contact into an intelligence-gathering operation for total galactic conquest. He said humans had been preparing for this since they first developed space travel, Zefter continued. He said every human exploration mission had been training for galactic warfare. He said they had been getting ready to meet us long before. We knew they existed. The revelation had been devastating. Human space exploration had not been driven by curiosity or wonder. It had been military reconnaissance. Every mission beyond Earth had been preparation for the day when humanity would encounter other species and choose to conquer them. Dr. Carter's experiments became more intensive, Zefter said, his voice shaking with remembered pain. She said she was learning fascinating things about Kethmori psychology. She said humans had developed very effective techniques for changing behavior. The human understanding of psychology had been weaponized just like everything else. Dr. Carter had developed methods for breaking down alien resistance and rebuilding personalities according to human specifications. She had turned the science of the mind into a tool of conquest. She said humans had spent centuries studying how to motivate people, Zefter continued. She said they had learned how to make anyone do anything. She said it was one of humanity's greatest achievements. The human mastery of psychological manipulation was complete and terrifying. They could identify the deepest fears and desires of any species and use them as tools of control. They had turned empathy into a weapon and understanding into a means of domination. Colonel Peterson visited the facility regularly, Zefter said. She said the human project was proceeding ahead of schedule. She said the galaxy was proving to be even more vulnerable than they had hoped. The human conquest of the galaxy was not a sudden plan. It was a systematic campaign that had been in development for years. Every contact with galactic species had been part of a larger strategy to achieve total dominance over all intelligent life. She said humans had studied every peaceful species in the galaxy, Zefter continued. She said they had identified the fundamental weakness that all advanced civilizations shared. She said they had found the flaw that would allow humanity to conquer everyone. Zefter's forearms wrapped around himself as he prepared to reveal the most horrifying truth of all. The council members could see that this part of his story was the hardest for him to tell. His scars seemed to glow brighter under the chamber lights. After weeks of imprisonment, they brought us all together again, Zefter said. Commander Velthara, Science Officer Nixpo, Communications Specialist Quendi, and myself. We were taken to a large room with windows that showed space outside. The reunion had not been a mercy. It had been the final stage of the human plan. They had separated the crew to study them individually, and now they were bringing them together to witness something that would break their spirits completely. General Patricia Hayes was waiting for us, Zefter continued. She was the highest-ranking human we had met. She said she wanted to show us something important. She said it would help us understand the situation better. General Hayes had been different from the other humans they had encountered. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had already won a war that others did not even know was being fought. Her presence filled the room with an aura of absolute authority. She said the humans had a confession to make, Zefter said. She said they had not been entirely honest about their first contact procedures. She said there were things about human operations that we needed to understand. The confession had not been about guilt or remorse. It had been about revealing the true scope of human planning and preparation. The humans had decided that their prisoners needed to understand exactly how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. She showed us recordings, Zefter continued. Images from space around Earth, but these were not recent recordings. They were from months before our first contact. They showed human ships that we had never seen. The recordings had been devastating to watch. The primitive human vessels that the Kethmori had observed were revealed to be nothing more than decoys. The real human fleet had been hidden, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The ships in the recordings were using advanced technology, Zefter said, technology that looked familiar. It was based on designs from other galactic species. The humans had been making contact for much longer than we realized. The human deception had been far more extensive than anyone had imagined. They had not just been hiding their true capabilities from the Kethmori. They had been conducting secret first contact missions with multiple species simultaneously, gathering technology and intelligence from across the galaxy. Dr. Carter had been studying alien biology for months, Zefter continued. Not just from our meetings, but from contact with dozens of other species. She had detailed files on every major galactic race. She knew our weaknesses better than we knew them ourselves. The human scientific program had been a systematic intelligence operation disguised as curiosity. Every question Dr. Carter had asked, every sample she had requested, every scan she had performed had been part of a larger plan to catalog the vulnerabilities of every species in the galaxy. Captain Morrison showed us communication logs, Zefter said. Messages between human agents who had been living among other species for months. Humans who had been posing as traders, diplomats, refugees. They had been everywhere. The scope of human infiltration had been staggering. While the galaxy had been going about its peaceful business, human agents had been moving among them, learning their languages, studying their cultures, identifying their leaders and their weaknesses. One agent had been living on the Valkyrie homeworld for 6 months, Zefter continued. Another had been working as a trader in Threndy space. There were humans on every major galactic world, all of them reporting back to Earth. The human intelligence network had been vast and sophisticated. They had not just been gathering information about technology and military capabilities. They had been studying galactic society, learning how to manipulate political systems and social structures. Admiral Susan Clark was introduced to us, Zephyr said. She commanded the human fleet that had been operating in galactic space. She said her ships had been observing major worlds and military installations for months. Admiral Clark had been running a shadow war that the galaxy had never known was happening. Her fleet had been mapping galactic defenses, identifying strategic targets, and preparing for military operations that would come later. She showed us tactical displays, Zephyr continued. Complete maps of galactic military forces. Detailed analysis of every species' defensive capabilities. Plans for simultaneous attacks on multiple worlds. The human military planning had been comprehensive and terrifying. They had identified every major military installation in the galaxy and developed specific strategies for neutralizing them. They had prepared for a war that would end before their enemies even knew it had begun. Dr. Alex Foster was their weapons designer, Zephyr said. He had been developing specialized weapons for fighting each galactic species. Weapons that used our own technology against us in ways we had never imagined. Dr. Foster had turned the galaxy's peaceful technologies into instruments of species-specific warfare. He had created weapons that would be devastatingly effective against particular alien physiologies while being harmless to humans. He showed us designs for biological weapons, Zephyr continued. Diseases that would affect only specific species. Poisons that would work on alien biology but not human. Psychological weapons that would exploit the fears and weaknesses of different races. The human approach to warfare was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had not just prepared to fight battles. They had prepared to win wars by destroying their enemy's ability to resist before the fighting even began. Colonel Peterson revealed the timeline, Zephyr said. The humans had been planning galactic conquest since they first detected alien signals. They had been preparing for this moment for years. The human preparation had not been rushed or improvised. It had been a carefully orchestrated campaign that had begun the moment humanity realized they were not alone in the universe. Every step had been planned and executed with military precision. She said human first contact protocols were military operations, Zephyr continued. Every meeting with alien species was an intelligence-gathering mission. Every exchange of information was part of a larger strategy. The humans had weaponized first contact itself. They had turned what should have been peaceful meetings into opportunities for espionage and preparation for conquest. They had used the galaxy's own goodwill against it. General Hayes showed us the master plan, Zephyr said, his voice shaking. Operation Galactic Integration, they called it. A systematic campaign to bring every intelligent species under human control. The plan had been breathtaking in its scope and audacity. The humans intended to conquer not just individual worlds or species, but the entire galactic civilization. They had prepared for total domination of all intelligent life. The plan had multiple phases, Zephyr continued. Intelligence gathering, technology acquisition, strategic positioning, and finally, simultaneous conquest of all major galactic powers. Each phase had been designed to support the next. The humans had gathered intelligence to identify targets, acquired technology to match galactic capabilities, positioned their forces for maximum effect, and prepared for coordinated strikes that would cripple galactic resistance. They showed us deployment schedules, Zephyr said. Human fleets were already in position around every major world. Human agents were ready to act on every important planet. The entire operation was ready. To begin, the human military machine had been positioned like pieces on a game board. Every ship, every agent, every weapon was in place for a coordinated attack that would bring down galactic civilization in a matter of days. Admiral Clark said the humans had given the galaxy a choice, Zephyr continued. Peaceful integration, under human leadership or total military conquest. She said the outcome would be the same either way. The human offer of choice had been an illusion. They had already positioned themselves to win regardless of what the galaxy decided. Peaceful surrender would be accepted, but resistance would be crushed with overwhelming force. Dr. Carter explained human psychology, Zefter said. She said humans were natural predators who had learned to cooperate for hunting larger prey. She said the galaxy was the largest prey humans had ever encountered. The human nature that had seemed so violent and primitive was revealed to be their greatest strength. They had evolved as hunters and had applied that same predatory intelligence to galactic conquest. She said humans had studied every peaceful species that had ever existed, Zefter continued. She said they had learned that peace was just another word for unpreparedness. She said humans had decided to teach the galaxy about the real nature of the universe. The human worldview was fundamentally different from galactic civilization. Where the galaxy saw cooperation and mutual benefit, humans saw competition and survival. Where the galaxy saw peace, humans saw opportunity. General Hayes gave us a message to deliver, Zefter said. She said the galaxy needed to understand that the age of peace was over. She said humans were taking their place as the dominant species and everyone else would learn to serve or be destroyed. Zefter stood in the center of the council chamber, his scarred body trembling as he prepared to deliver the final part of his testimony. The representatives from 12 different species sat in complete silence, their faces showing the growing horror of understanding what humanity truly was. My journey back to council space should have been impossible, Zefter said, his voice barely audible. The humans controlled everything. Their ships surrounded galactic space. Their agents were on every world, but they let me go. They wanted me to return. The human decision to release him had not been mercy or oversight. It had been a calculated move designed to achieve maximum psychological impact on the galactic leadership. They wanted the council to know exactly what was coming. Colonel Peterson personally escorted me to my escape pod, Zefter continued. She said I had been chosen as humanity's messenger. She said the galaxy needed to understand the new reality before it was too late to choose cooperation. The escort had been both an honor guard and a final demonstration of human power. Colonel Peterson had walked him through sections of the station that showed the true scope of human preparation. Weapons factories, training facilities, communication centers coordinating operations across the galaxy. She showed me production lines building ships faster than any galactic facility, Zefter said. Humans working with technology they had learned from dozens of species, manufacturing weapons designed to fight wars that had not yet begun. The human industrial capacity was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had taken the peaceful technologies of multiple species and converted them into tools of mass production. They were building fleets faster than galactic civilizations could even design new ships. She said humans had been preparing for this moment since they first looked at the stars, Zefter continued. She said every human child learned about the galaxy in school. She said they had been planning conquest for generations. The revelation that human education included galactic conquest was perhaps the most chilling aspect of their civilization. This was not the ambition of a few leaders. This was the shared goal of an entire species that had been raised to see galactic domination as their destiny. Admiral Clark was there for my departure, Zefter said. She gave me coordinates where human fleets were waiting. She said I could verify their positions when I returned to council space. She said the galaxy needed to understand that resistance was impossible. The human fleet positions had been revealed as a demonstration of power. They were not hiding their military assets anymore. They wanted the galaxy to know that human ships were already in position around every major world. Dr. Carter gave me medical files, Zefter continued. Detailed analysis of every galactic species' biological weaknesses. She said it was a gift. To show human goodwill, she said it would help the council understand how thoroughly humans had prepared. The medical files had been both a gift and a threat. They showed that humans could heal any galactic species, but they also showed that humans knew exactly how to harm them. It was a demonstration of total biological superiority disguised as scientific cooperation. Captain Morrison delivered the final message, Zephyr said, his voice shaking with remembered terror. He said to tell the Council that humanity was ready to take its place as the dominant species in the galaxy. He said the age of peace was ending. Morrison's message had been delivered with the calm confidence of someone stating an obvious fact. There had been no boasting or threats, just a simple declaration that humanity was assuming control of galactic civilization. He said to tell the galaxy that humans remembered everything, Zephyr continued. Every assumption that they were primitive. Every casual dismissal of their capabilities. Every moment when other species looked down on them as inferior. The human memory of perceived slights had been transformed into motivation for conquest. They had catalogued every instance of being underestimated and used it as justification for their campaign of galactic domination. He said humans had been watching galactic civilizations for longer than anyone realized, Zephyr said. He said they had studied our weaknesses, learned our fears, and prepared countermeasures for everything we might try. The scope of human observation and preparation was staggering. They had not just been reactive to galactic contact. They had been proactive, studying and preparing for conquest long before making themselves known. The message was simple, Zephyr continued. Submit to human leadership peacefully or be conquered by force. He said the outcome would be the same either way, but cooperation would result in less suffering. The human offer had not been a negotiation. It had been an ultimatum delivered from a position of absolute strength. They had already positioned themselves to win regardless of the galaxy's response. As my ship departed, I saw the true scale of human operations, Zephyr said. Hundreds of stations hidden throughout space. Thousands of ships moving in coordinated formations. Millions of humans working together with a single purpose. The sight of human civilization mobilized for war had been the final blow to Zephyr's understanding of reality. This was not a primitive species that had stumbled into advanced technology. This was a military civilization that had been planning galactic conquest for decades. They had turned space itself into their weapon, Zephyr continued. Every asteroid had been converted into a base. Every gas giant had become a fuel depot. Every empty system had become a staging area for invasion. Fleets. The human transformation of space was complete and systematic. They had not just built ships and weapons. They had converted the galaxy itself into a vast military machine designed to support their conquest. During my journey home, I received messages, Zephyr said. Reports from other species about strange contacts with humans. Stories that matched exactly what had happened to us. The pattern was the same everywhere. The human operations had been coordinated across the entire galaxy. Every species had been contacted using the same methods, studied using the same techniques, and prepared for a conquest using the same strategies. It had been a galaxy-wide intelligence operation disguised as first contact. The Valkyrie had lost a diplomatic team 3 months ago, Zephyr continued. The Threndi had reported strange technical problems with their defense systems. The Morpack had mentioned unusual trader activities in their space. Each report had seemed minor and unconnected when viewed individually, but taken together they showed a pattern of systematic infiltration and preparation that had been ongoing for months or even years. When I arrived here, I found human ships already in orbit around the Council world, Zephyr said. Not hiding, not threatening, just waiting. They had timed their arrival to coincide with my testimony. The human timing had been perfect and terrifying. They had coordinated their reveal across the galaxy to happen at the exact moment when their message was being delivered to the galactic leadership. It was a demonstration of planning and control that left no doubt about their capabilities. The ships broadcasted a message, Zephyr continued. Captain Morrison's voice transmitted to every world simultaneously. The same ultimatum delivered to every species at the same time. The simultaneous broadcast had been the final demonstration of human power. They had revealed their presence everywhere at once, showing that they had been in position all along, waiting for the perfect moment to announce their intentions. As I stand here now, human fleets are visible from every major galactic world, Zephyr said. They are not hiding anymore. They want everyone to see them, to understand that resistance is futile. The human revelation had been complete and coordinated. They had moved from secrecy to open demonstration of power in a single moment, showing the galaxy that they had been in control all along. The Council faces an impossible choice, Zephyr continued. Submit to human authority and hope for merciful treatment, or resist and face the full force of human military might. The choice offered to the galaxy was not really a choice at all. The humans had positioned themselves to win regardless of the Council's decision. They had made resistance so costly that surrender seemed like the only rational option. But I have seen what humans are capable of, Zephyr said, his voice rising for the first time. I have seen how they think, how they plan, how they turn everything into a weapon. Even cooperation with them will mean the end of everything we have built. The warning was clear and desperate. Even peaceful surrender to human authority would mean the destruction of galactic civilization as it had existed. The humans would remake everything according to their own violent nature. They do not want to join our civilization, Zephyr continued. They want to replace it. They want to turn the galaxy into a reflection of themselves. They want to make every species into predators like them. The human goal was not integration but transformation. They intended to reshape galactic civilization. In their own image, turning peaceful species into warriors and cooperative societies into competitive hierarchies. The galaxy must choose, Zephyr said, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of desperate plea. Fight them now while we still can, or surrender and hope that some part of who we are will survive their rule.